Hey, Dad, you see that guy over there? I think he's hurt.
He probably is. That's what alcohol will do to you.
No, I mean, look at the blood on his chin.
Well, he probably just fell down. Alcohol thins the blood, makes you bleed easier. It's not a big deal. Now, what time are they supposed to be here?
They'll be late. James had to go pick up Jimmy today. You can go, you know. The breakfast place is right around the corner.
Oh, no, I'm not leaving you here by yourself. Look, just close the door. It's cold out here.
Oh, there you are. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.
Have fun. And, yeah. Take James to breakfast. Tell him the deacons think he's doing a good job with the youth ministry. Okay, whoa, now wait a second. Be careful. Wait, what's there?
To him. He's just drunk.
No, I mean, it's like he got pretty beat up last night.
Dad said he probably just fell down.
Your dad said that?
Yeah.
And he said he was okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's what he said alcohol does to you. Is the blood or something.
82 to 76. I love it.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, go get
Told you
it.
I didn't want to know.
Dude, what happened to this guy?
I think he got beat up.
Care about liquor about. Come on, y'all. I'm ready for a victory breakfast. Hey, you guys, hold up.
Hey, sir? Hey, sir? Sir, are you okay?
What would you do if you found someone badly hurt and in need of help? Would it matter who it was? Would it matter if it happened while you were in the middle of doing something? What if you were on a lunch break? At work, or on your way to an appointment you've been waiting to get? As the youth pastor noticed the old man, a tension began to happen inside of him, right? A tension that tugged on his heart. In fact, he had a youth group with him. And they were waiting to go on to this breakfast thing they had been waiting to go to. He felt enough tension to stop. But would he react to the tension? What would you do?
There's not much we can do here. Go get some breakfast.
It didn't. Will you, my friend? Will you, my friend?
Excuse me, but you were with the older gentleman, I believe?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. Your friend is going to be fine. He's had some intracranial bleeding, and he's got some fluid on his lungs. It's a good thing he got here what he did. He's stable now, but we're going to need to watch him overnight.
And when will he be released?
Tomorrow, if there are no complications. We're going to be transferring him to the main hospital in just a little while.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Would it be possible to see him?
Sure. I can take you there now if you'd like.
Thank you.
Right, it's coming out.
Three people noticed the old man. We had the youth pastor, we had a young boy, and we had a taxi driver. Can you relate to one of those? Have you been in the shoes of each one? It's interesting how the taxi driver was looked at as someone you probably wouldn't want to trust. There was a feeling of a question regarding this man just because of how he looks. Much like the reaction of the Samaritans, how they were treated in the Bible. They were looked upon, down upon by the Jews. And yet Jesus made a point to talk with a Samaritan woman at the well, and he used a Samaritan as the story of the Good Samaritan. It is easy for us to forget that God works through all his children. We tend to think that we know what God will do with so-and-so, or, oh, they're such a good person, he'll obviously use that person in that situation. I don't need to help. There's a pastor standing over there. I don't need to do that. But God uses those who are willing to be His instruments of grace. And last week we talked about you do what you can do, and you give it to God, and He does what He can do. Many times we think someone's unqualified to do something. There's times people think people are unqualified to even walk through the doors of our church. They're not good enough. Or we don't want that kind in here. But you know what? They feel tension in their heart. And these people respond to what God calls them to do. It amazes us. And isn't that terrible to think that it amazes us? God's children are all around us. They can be in any denomination. They can have any kind of background. We don't know where they're at with God. God knows who's seeking Him. God knows who hears Him. Out of all the people we saw that saw this old man, the taxi driver gave attention to the tension he was feeling. The youth leader and the boy felt the need, but did they respond? Just like in the story Jesus tells of the Good Samaritan, the Samaritan, unlike the two religious Jews, respond to the tension by reacting in compassion. He stopped, checked the man's condition, treated the man's wounds, bandaged him. The taxi driver used what he had, pulled out of the taxi, gave him his water. We can assume that this taxi driver was probably working because someone came for a fare, and he turned it down. He told him to go somewhere else. He was focused on the tension. He needed to do something. He probably needed the money. I think often of, when I was looking at this, we watched Mission Impossible. And there's that one part in there where, Jim Phelps gets his assignment at the beginning. And he says, you take the assignment, I'd like to think of your mission, Jim, should you decide to accept. And he tells him what the mission is. So he has a chance to think about it. If you or any of your IM force would be caught or killed, the Secretary will disavow any knowledge of your actions. Many times when we're on a mission, and I look at it as a mission, an assignment, you take the mission or you don't take it. God doesn't force us to take any of these tensions that may come our way. But when we act on it, sometimes no one even knows that we did anything, right? But God knows. And that's who we do it for. How many times, the Good Samaritan in the story Jesus told placed the wounded man on his donkey and brought him to an inn where he spent the night caring for the man. The taxi driver uses his taxi and takes the man to the hospital. Now, you're taking someone to the hospital. You could just say, I found this man sitting on the side here. But no, he waits. He goes above and beyond. He could have left him there. But the taxi driver also asked to see him. He had to have waited through the night. He paid attention to the tension. And he did what he could do. And he let God direct him in those steps. How many times does something come up that requires you to make a decision? And you're like, I don't have time to do that right now. Or it's something that you're not too sure of. Let's say it another way. How many times does something come up that causes a tension inside? They're kind of similar, aren't they? And you wish it would just go away. This tension might put you in an uncomfortable place with family or friends. How many of those tensions do we get? You find yourself needing to make a decision that you don't want to make because this decision is probably a defining moment in your life. You could have consequences of the decision if it's wrong. And it could determine some good things. You don't want to make the wrong decision on this. Now think about this. How many times have you been nudged by the Spirit to do something? Many times we can't see the whole picture of what God's doing. And when we can't, we get frustrated. We're not sure what's ahead. Well, I don't know if I should do that. Or, this is really inconvenient. Scott said one time in a sermon that love is inconvenient. I'll never forget that. It is. It always requires a little bit more of you. And sometimes, some of us that have done things for others and have found ourselves, it took a lot longer than we thought it would. We can see it coming again. And we're like, okay, this isn't going to be one of those little things. I can just see it coming. But you have a choice. How many wrong decisions have you made in the past? And how many decisions have you made? They were almost wrong decisions, but you caught it and made the right decision. It was really close. Many times, with not seeing that big picture of what God's doing, we will turn the other way because we don't have time. So when you feel attention, pay attention. Don't make a decision just based on what you think. Where is it coming from? Is it God? Is it maybe something you have a problem with and you don't want to deal with that? It could be that. Or you could just see something you don't need to get into. But it might be that little nudge from God, from the Spirit. What is God wanting you to do? Is He wanting you to stop doing something? Is He wanting you to step back and think about it again? Is He wanting you to wait? How many times do we have that? I'm just supposed to wait. I can't do anything on it. Right? Don't make the mistake of ignoring it and saying to yourself, oh, I'm not going to worry about it. It's nothing too big. We tend to go with the things that benefit us most, don't we? Deep down inside, there's got to be a reason. We have to justify why we're making a decision. And usually, even when we're trying not to, it's based on what's going to benefit us the most. How much time is it going to involve? How inconvenient is this going to be for me? I bet everyone here has had that happen, including me. Oh, if I could only go back and get my name off that document I signed. If I would have never moved in with that person. Why did I agree to this? If only I could reword that statement I said back to that one person. Pay attention to the tension. So here's what I'd like you to do the next time you get that tension, that little nudge. It may be something so small that you don't even think you have to worry about. But when you get a nudge, you can stand back and have options. You always have options. And many times when we're working in haste and we feel the burden of something so much, we have to make a decision right away. And one of those principles we've talked about is that time, taking that time. Don't make a haste decision. But God gives us options. And He gives us those little tension nudges for us to maybe to rethink something before we just jump into it. Step back and look at it again. Take some time in prayer. You always need to pray about what we make decisions in, right? Take the whole thing completely upon you. Just imagine, just think about, what does this involve? What could God be doing in this? God gives us simple principles to use when trying to make decisions. First thing is, am I being completely honest with myself? We are great in selling ourselves in something that we really want, right? We can convince ourselves we need a car, we need this house, all this stuff. And just think about that. So if you're in a decision that you're really not wanting to make, are you letting yourself get in the way of that? Are you being honest? I like this one. Every season of your life is eventually a story you can tell. So when you're making a decision, make the decision as if you were looking back on it. Now think about that. Here's the decision you're wanting to make. Here's the goal. Start there. Okay, this is what I want to happen. How do I get there? What's the best way for me to approach this? And just being way over here going, yeah, I'm going to do that right now. Just go back from the decision, the goal you're wanting, and think about the steps you need to take on that. It might, when you do that, most times we've all done it in some things. Usually someone says, here's the way we're going to be doing this. And you can see the steps they've come to do that. They're not just jumping into something. Even when we plan outreaches and stuff, there's steps we have to do to make it successful. It's the same with every decision you make. And one of the biggest ingredients of that is pray first to see, is God wanting me to do something? Is He wanting me to wait? Is He wanting me not to be honest? And is there attention that needs my attention? Is there something in your spirit nudging you to do something? Or maybe it's telling you something's not quite right. Sometimes we're not even aware of it unless somebody else brings it to our attention, and then it's attention. It's like, oh, I didn't know I was being like that, or I didn't see that they were acting like that when I said that. It could be little tiny nudges from God saying, wait a minute, how are you approaching this? It makes us question ourselves, and then we're faced with that little tension. Wouldn't it be a lot easier if God would just let us know what's going on? That would be best, wouldn't it? But you know what, in a way, I don't think it would matter. We'd still try to control it. But maybe He is. Maybe the tensions that we have is God nudging us to step back and rethink a situation. Will we pause then and pay attention to the tension? Could it be that small little voice of God? God tries to warn us time after time, but we are so used to taking control of how we want it to be. When you have attention, you have the option. Remember that. When you're feeling something like that, maybe there's some options you have to look at first before you jump into something. So take a moment and think about what your options are. You may think, many of us, think we know what's going to happen if we do this way or if we do it that way. But you know what? If we've given our life to God, do we really know what's going to happen tomorrow? If we've given our life to Him, He is in control. So we really need to listen to those little tugs to see what He's wanting us to do. He may be keeping us from harm. So remember that God only knows. So we need to pay attention to the tensions around.